Steve Golubic. I had 3 different seniority dates on the Milwaukee. We went break-in 1965, summer of 65, and then break-in again in 66. And then in 1969, I went firing. And promoted engineer in about 72, I think. And then until 1980.
What got you started?
Family. Dad was a conductor. Brother, 2 uncles. Kind of just. Actually, I hated it the first year I went.
You were started as a brakeman?
Yeah. And of course, I was just going to work in summers, and then I went to school. And got a teaching degree, and then came back here after that.
So you started like right out of high school? Was it your first time?
The day after I graduated from high school. First day.
Probably not how most people spend their
first summers.
Yeah. What does a brakeman do specifically?
Line switches, couple up cars, hand signs, radio signals. A lot of riding.
What was it like working for the railroad?
A lot of long hours. When I started, of course, all these old timers, it was 16 hours a day. And a lot of times, 16 hours a day. It was, I think, working out of Clell was actually pretty good because when you went east, all the trains started out of Tacoma real early in the morning, so we were going to work between 6 and noon instead of 10, 11 o'clock at night most of the time. So it was a good living though for most of the people.
Can you explain some of the hazards of being a brakeman?
All kinds of hazards. You had to be careful not to be coupled between cars. You always had to walk where you were walking. And then when we started, they were still going high on cars, climbing cars on top to brakes up high. Slippery in the winter, hot in the summer.
Dangerous job like that. You must have gotten pretty close with all the guys you work with.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys ever get in a lot of trouble in those small railroad towns?
Not a lot. No, not much.
You never got caught?
No. Well, when I first started, we stayed in the bunkhouse. I mean, you were in the bunkhouse when you were out of town, playing a lot of cards and watching TV and going uptown to eat.
Where were the bunkhouses located?
Well, the bunkhouse Clell right over here, but then there was a bunkhouse in Othello where we stayed because we only worked east out of here.
How long would it take to go from here to Othello?
Depending on which train and what you had. Eastbound, if you were a hotshot train and didn't meet anybody, you could be there in 2 hours and 50 minutes.
So you said there was brakes on the roof, or on there's top brakes. What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, if you look at a new freight car or a box car or any of the kind of cars, all the handbrakes are low where you can stand on the ground and either a wheel to turn them or a ratchet. And years ago, all the brakes were mostly staff brakes. Even the newer wheel brakes, they were up on the end of the boxcar, up in between the boxcar. So you had a ladder on the side of the boxcar. You had to climb up and then stand on a little platform to tie the handbrakes.
As it was moving?
A lot of times, yeah.
Any mishaps?
Oh yeah. None that I was involved in.
That's good.
My dad, in the 50s, I was pretty young. They were spotting an industry in Othello, and he was riding, because he used to, when there was still 3 brakemen and conductor before the radios, They used to have to ride high to give hand signals when you're coming to a joint or to stop. And he was riding high, and they're switching an industry, and there was a telephone line that cut him underneath the neck and threw him the whole length of one car, and he landed on the next one right on the end on his face. Broke his jaw and his cheek, and
Sounds like he's lucky to be alive.
he was like, because if he'd have gone between the cars and gone down, he would pretty almost positive getting run over.
And if you're going a little faster, might just take his head clean off.
Yeah. He hired out in 1940 or 41. And he always told the story that like he was probably right here. And when Louis Bloom was a station agent, he came down to see if he could get a job. And he'd been out of high school for 8 or 9 years. And he was working in a coal mine in Roslyn. And he asked him if they were hiring, and the agent said, yeah. He says, do you want to go in engine service or train service? So he looked out the window and saw a big black steam engine, and he says, I'm going to go in train service. I've shoveled coal for the last 10 years, and then after he got working, he found out that most of their engines were oil-fired. So, and if he'd have gone in engine service, he would have been #1 engineer when he retired. So.
Your father's name is?
Swanee, Z.
Swanee Golubic?
Mm-hmm.
Swanee with a Z though? ZW? Or?
Well, it was SW, but that was his nickname.
Oh.
His first name was really Zwanimir.
Are there any shipments that stick out? Any most memorable?
Well, for me, no.
No.
Any memorable days?
I was never involved in any major derailments, accidents, so my career was pretty good shape.
Positive career.
Yeah.
Anything you miss about it?
No. Not after 40-some years, no.
Can you recant your experience when you found out they were closing Milwaukee?
Mad and sad?
How did they let you know?
No, probably just a newspaper ad or a newspaper article.